One thing that we love about this sport is the parity, am I right? As in teams that look the most promising going in, that are hyped up, and seemingly defeated by the underdogs. And this alone makes playoff hockey Christmas for me personally, and probably most viewers consuming this content. But what causes teams that are favorites to typically be favored? Oh, superstars. That's right, the ones in the spotlight that are racking in all of that green stuff. But as I mentioned, parity. Parity has allowed for these 4 players that are making 8 figures a year to now be exempt from the postseason. Therefore, I'm going to be the typical YouTuber that overreacts and makes a video such as this, talking about the possibility of each player leaving his team for greener pastures. And with that, here are my thoughts on what will happen to these 4 NHL superstars. I know, it's the playoffs, and here we are yet again talking about Mitch Marner, as it seems like it's almost instinctual at this point to assume that Marner trade talk will happen every Leafs offseason. Before we address this timely Toronto collapse, let's rewind just a little. So before, ironically, his teammate to be, Nick Foligno, scored the empty netter sealing the deal in the bubble against the Leafs, Mitch Marner had 4 assists in 5 games played in the qualifiers. Okay, fast forward to present. Mitch Marner had 4 assists in 6 games played against Montreal, another underdog to have slayed the offensive juggernaut. So here's the thing, Marner is an infectious guy off ice, and I'm sure he's a great guy in the locker room. He's hilarious, really. But similarly to Matthews, this has been a pattern. We've seen 2 different scenarios, 2 different opposing teams, and really 2 different rosters considering how much Dubas switched things up, but no results. Alex Galchenyuk, a guy that is making a little more than $1 million, had the same number of points. Yeah, that's sadly a fact. Another is, he hasn't scored a single goal in 18 straight postseason games. In the biggest moments when things have mattered most, Marner, along with others, hasn't been able to thrive under the pressure. As we saw, an unfortunate delay of game penalty that took place that helped Montreal take Game 6. So if I'm Kyle Dubas, logically, am I going to keep a guy that I pay $15 million in total salary on my books? If I'm rational, no. And as much respect as I have for the GM, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to see the light on this one. As when faced with Marner criticism last go around, he had this to say.
What kind of player do we want Mitch to become? Just what he is now. I don't know where this all started with the criticizing of Mitch Marner, but to me, it's among the most idiotic things that I see done here.
So despite tons of opinions, including a nobody yammering on YouTube about it, I'm going to speculate that, unless coerced from the higher-ups, Dubas will choose, ultimately, to keep all of his stars in his pocket, and save them for another rainy day. You know, in the postseason. Anyways, let's say Dubas changes his mind. Marner would look pretty decent in red for the New Jersey Devils. Buffalo is always open for business, Los Angeles would be an attractive, logical venue, and I'm sure other teams would want Marner's services, but honestly, with the current cap, not many would even be able to afford it. I mean, let's be real. Not every team is the Toronto Maple Leafs, after all. So for many going in, the thought of Connor McDavid entering the playoffs was just enough to let them lose sight, unfortunately, of reality and imagine number 97 and Leon Draisaitl alone winning a series for Edmonton. But as we saw yet again, hockey is a team sport, and playoff hockey in particular is the Oilers' kryptonite, as the team was easily shut down, just as they were earlier in the season against Montreal and Toronto. I mean, we all witnessed the frustration seeping from McDavid when, he all of a sudden wasn't able to have free reign in the slot, and someone actually knew how to defend. It was something new that he had to adjust to, and he hadn't seen pretty much all season, so yeah, I can understand why he was mad. Anyways, taking in the big picture here, it's blatantly obvious to anyone that has eyes that this team needs something that balances it out, makes it more competitive. I mean, they do have good players, don't get me wrong. Obviously, Draisaitl, Darnell Nurse, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins have been the brighter spots on the roster, but besides Draisaitl, when you look at the supporting cast, there's nobody that really stands out as a top caliber offensive threat, besides McDavid, of course. And for this team to succeed, they first need to realize that something is missing. So no, I don't see McDavid leaving, as he said, quote, "We want to see this thing through together, do this thing right. It's special to be able to play with these guys. It feels like we're light years away, but we're a lot closer than it feels today," end quote. So taking all of that in, yes, McDavid is, in my opinion, not going to pull a Tavares and is going to stay, but I think for this team to succeed, they need to realize that indeed, there is work to be done. And Ken Holland desperately needs to try and remedy the situation. This may not be the most popular take to hear, but out of all of these players featured on this list personally, I think Ovechkin is the most likely to be donning a different NHL jersey for the first time in his career next season. Why? Well, here's the thing. Every player besides Ovechkin on this list is young for a hockey player and have yet to be or are still in the prime of their careers. They all command high price tags of at least $10 million, but in Ovechkin's case, despite being the best goal scorer in the modern age, he's still going to be 36 years old when the next season starts. So if I'm a GM who has witnessed his team pretty much collapse in the postseason in the first round and evaluating my options, am I going to re-sign my captain to another pricey deal if all sentimentality is out the window and he's not willing to take a hometown discount? No way, I'd say is the logical answer. Considering the state of the team, where it's at culturally, and the fact that Washington should be really trying to funnel some money into getting a more experienced netminder in between the pipes, signing Ovechkin to anything equal or more than 10 million AAV would be a huge grave mistake. If Ovechkin is willing to put ego aside and sign for less, yes, I would say he stays. But if the team can't come to an agreement, then no. I would say a trade could take place with the Seattle draft on the horizon. He does have a modified no trade clause technically, so the Kraken could take him if he's unprotected, so that's another possible outcome. I'd say if no one bites on the market before free agency. So despite Ovechkin saying he wants to remain a Washington Capital, he still doesn't have complete control over where he ends up. Definitely not as much to blame as Marner, I would say, but not by much, as Auston Matthews, despite being this year's Rocket Richard recipient, was only able to score 1 goal throughout the 7-game series as he finished with 5 total points. And similarly to Marner, he's been along for the ride throughout several postseason collapses. Obviously, Matthews is what I would consider the face of the franchise and their best player, so trading him off along with Marner potentially would be just a little drastic. But even still, if Dubas is really looking to shake things up and completely stray from, his 3 8-digit contract to season philosophy, then well, this would be a sure way to do it. Even though I strongly believe Matthews will remain a Leaf, let's for the sake of, FUN, fun. Name some teams that could use him the most and that come to mind for me, for sure, are Minnesota, Montreal, although we know that would never happen, potentially Buffalo if Eichel leaves, maybe Calgary, and of course Arizona. The ones that stand out the most to me, though, are Buffalo, Minnesota, and Arizona. All are lower key markets, probably something that Matthews would gladly accept. Teams that are in desperate need of a star center. Daydreaming here, ignore me guys.